Hey guys, so glad to be back with you as we continue our look at pivotal moments in the life of Jesus. This week, we're going to look at one of the most well known moments in the life of Jesus as he walks on the water. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33 this week. Just to bring us up to speed to this moment in the life of Jesus. Starting in chapter 14, Jesus experiences really a wide range of emotions throughout chapter 14. It starts out with Jesus learning of the beheading of John the Baptist. Wishing to be alone to pray and to grieve, no doubt, he retreats to a desolate place. But crowds seem to find where he is. And in this case, crowd learns where he is and follows him there. And Matthew writes that upon seeing the great crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. And just a few verses later, another one of his famous miracles occurs when he feeds the 5,000 with just those 5 loaves and 2 fish. He does this all while grieving the loss of his cousin, John. And this is where we pick up the story. So let's turn to Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 33. You can follow along in your copy of God's word. But God's word says this: immediately he made the disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But the boat by this time was a long way from the land, beaten by the waves, for the wind was against them. And in the fourth watch of the night, he came to them walking on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified and said, "It's a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them, saying, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." And Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." And he said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat and walked on the water and came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." And Jesus immediately reached out his hand and took hold of him, saying to him, "Oh, you of little faith, why did you doubt?" And when they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshiped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." After dismissing the crowd, Jesus sent his disciples ahead of him. He just wanted to be alone with his Father. I wish we had a transcript of that conversation that took place. Matthew reports that Jesus was alone on the mountainside. So, anything that I say about that moment is purely conjecture on my part. I think Jesus was still seeking comfort and consolation in a time of grief, time of renewal with his Father. After all, he had been interrupted by that great crowd earlier and didn't have a chance to pray, but saw to the needs of those who were following him. Prayer was so important to Jesus. And we'll look more closely next week at a very pivotal prayer in the life of Jesus. But meanwhile, Jesus appears to his disciples on the water. Of course, at 3 a.m., any appearance out on the water is bound to be frightful, not to mention what appears to be a person coming across the top of the water. They called out to him and said, "It's a ghost," and cried out in fear. But Jesus spoke up and said, "It is I. Do not be afraid." Let's look at Jesus's response here. He replied to the disciples, "It is I. Do not be afraid." His response, "It is I," is literally, "I am." This is a purposeful echo on Jesus's part to the Old Testament texts like Exodus 3:14, where Jesus identifies himself as Yahweh, the same way God identified himself to Moses as I am what I am that I am. He is not a man with special powers who can do amazing things like feeding the 5,000 or healing the sick or walk on water even. He is God himself come in human flesh. So many things can be communicated through his short answer of, "It is I." But Peter's reply, "Can I do it?" In essence, Lord, he says, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come on the water." He wanted to partake in that. And, Jesus could have said, "No, Peter, this is too much for you. You won't be able to handle it. You'll immediately sink." He could have said, "You're not strong enough in the faith yet to take this kind of step. So you better hang back. You need to know me a little bit longer before you can do something like this." But he didn't. He didn't say any of those things. He said, "Come." Jesus knew he could empower Peter to walk on the water. After all things are possible with God. The big question was, did Peter trust that Jesus could help him walk on water? And initially, all signs pointed to yes. But inevitably, he became distracted by the wind and weather around him, and Peter started relying on himself and doubted, took his eyes off of Jesus and sank in the water. When Peter started to sink, he knew who to cry out to. He didn't cry out to the other disciples for a lifeline. He didn't cry out for someone to swim out to his rescue. He cried out to the Lord. "Lord, save me." Immediately, Jesus reached his hand and took a hold of him and turned it into a teaching moment. He said, "Why did you doubt?" And I got to pause right here and just kind of mention this. All of this took place while they were still on the water. In the middle of the wind and the waves, Jesus was teaching Peter a lesson. So in the middle of the storm, Jesus could have let Peter suffer a while longer. He could have let him sink to the bottom as a kind of would have been a tough and hard lesson for the rest of the disciples. Listen, if you don't trust in me, you're out. But no, there was grace and there was mercy. There was compassion there. I think there are a few principles here that are evident in this pivotal moment in the life of Jesus and really the life of the disciples as they were on the boat witnessing this, and most assuredly in the life of Peter here. But first principle here, Jesus wants us to experience the fullness of his power in our lives. Our own lack of faith is what keeps his power hidden from us. Did you notice when Peter said, "Hey, if it's you, call me out. I want to do that." He didn't say, "No, Peter, you're not strong enough in the faith yet." He said, "Come on. If you trust me, come on. I got you." And Peter went for it. What is it in your life right now that is keeping you from experiencing the fullness of Christ? What's causing you to hesitate to ask if you can come and join Jesus on the water? He is not going to take the first step for you. He just won't. It's up to you. We must trust in him and take the first step in faith. Then and only then will you receive what he has waiting for you. So I just encourage all of us. I have encouragement in this. We need to be more like Peter and exercise our faith in Jesus today. We'll never know what we're missing out by not placing our full faith and trust in the Lord today. But secondly, I see uh, another principle. What is immediate for Jesus may feel like it is never going to come for us. And have you ever been sinking in the water? Now, I'm sure you jumped off a pool and hit the water and just went straight to the bottom. But in this case, Peter really didn't have a whole lot of momentum because he got out of the boat, was successfully walking across the water. But as soon as he doubted, that water gave way and he started to sink. And I imagine he dropped pretty quickly because you don't tend to sink slow. I mean, you don't bob in the water and then eventually make your way under. When you go under, you go under. You stop paddling, you sink. Peter needed Jesus's help quickly. And I'm sure there was some time between verse 30 and verse 31 where Peter's thinking, hurry up, Lord, I'm going to drown here. You see that in verse 30, he calls out, Lord, help me. Verse 31, it says, immediately Jesus reached out his hand to save him. But I just wonder, how long did it feel for Peter? How long does it feel for us when we feel like we're drowning in the chaos around us and the uncertainty that lies ahead of us while we're dealing with the consequences of a poor decision that we've made? When we grew tired of waiting for the Lord and we tried to do it on our own, and now we're dealing with the consequences of that, and we cry out to the Lord, Lord, help me. It certainly probably doesn't feel like an immediate response is coming. But we have to trust in him. He's there. He's waiting to see, do we truly have all of our faith in him? Is it just another ruse to get a bailout so we can then do something on our own? He longs for us to place all of our faith in him. And he'll teach us that even through the circumstances that we are having to manage because of a poor decision. Another principle, fear and distractions easily shift our focus to ourselves. Peter saw the wind. He began to grow. His fear began to grow because his eyes were taken off the one who was in control over it all. Placed his confidence in himself, and he began to sink. Our fear and our distractions can so easily blind us and cause us to shift our focus to something tangible, something that we can manage, something we can control. Our faith must stay constant on the one who is sovereign and in control. And lastly, Jesus waits for us to realize our need for him. You see, Jesus never let, let me say it this way. You see, if Jesus never let Peter fall, Peter would have convinced himself that through his doubt and fear, he was able to overcome it himself. Jesus was standing on the water, watching and waiting for Peter to realize that he needed Jesus to pull him up out of the water. And however quickly it may have happened, he realized it and called on the right one. In this singular moment, we learn that Jesus Christ is God in the flesh, and he is God of the universe and has power over the nature he created. We learn that he wants those who believe in him to experience his full power and trust in him, even when our humanity within us screams that it is not possible. We learn when we fully rely on him, we can accomplish great things. We learn to keep our eyes and focus on him when the world around us is out of control. We must rely on him at all times. He is sovereignly in control, the true Son of God and deserving of all of our worship and praise. As Paul wrote in Colossians chapter 1, verses 16 and 17, he wrote, "For by him," talking about Jesus, "for by him all things were created in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. And he is before all things, and in him all things hold together." I can't think of anyone better to place my full trust in. I just pray, guys, when we are sinking, I pray that we remember that and we call out to him and place our full faith in him, for he will see us through. In these uncertain times, in these days, we don't see the end of this coronavirus. We don't see the end of all of what is going on. God knows the end. He knows how it's going to end. And by the way, it's going to end. We know he tells us in his word, it's going to end with every knee bowing and every tongue confessing that he is Lord forever and ever and ever. As I pray that God's word brings transformation to your life. And may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with your spirit. God bless you.